Hello, everybody. I just have to figure out a setting here. 1 second. Hmm. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get rolling. Just a couple minutes early here. Just gonna get out my notes. All right. So today
Oh,
we're talking about, and then if there are any questions, of course, we can go through that. But today we're going to be talking about late nights and eating, blood sugar, what to do, what not to do, that kind of thing, because it really sets you up for kind of a roller coaster of blood sugar control throughout the day. And then it also affects your other symptoms that you're probably wanting to have fixed, such as energy, such as, anxiety, or even some other mental health kind of things. Mood can be affected by this dysregulated glucose. And then also, um, things like not getting into your fat stores if you're trying to lose weight and that kind of thing. That can be problematic and what is at the core of some of those things. And um, sometimes it seems pretty benign, the things that we might eat later at night, but we have to be more aware of it and to make sure that it is not something that we're doing on the regular. So, first of all, we need to talk about why nighttime blood sugar matters. Okay, so the body follows a circadian rhythm where we have supposed to have this cortisol spike in the morning to help wake us up. With that, your blood sugar comes with it. And then it helps to regulate things just like insulin and, like regulates glucose and that kind of thing. And then what happens is it slowly comes down throughout the day, down into night, so you can rest, restore, recover. And if you are eating before bed, that cortisol spike can come up again and help, be raised with glucose and that kind of thing. So that is why it's really important because we have this natural circadian rhythm. And when this natural circadian rhythm is off, we don't feel very well at all for a lot of reasons. So that's something that if you want to track something else, if you want to do anything else with your health, there's all kinds of apps. I use the Aura Ring. I don't have it on right now. But that looks at how your circadian rhythm is, and everybody's a little bit different. Everybody, you hear about the people who are early risers or are night owls. There are some people like that. It's just not as many as we think. We've sort of gotten into habits that will keep us stuck. So, if you're watching this on replay, those who are not here live, what you might consider is if you've told yourself, oh, I'm a night owl, but you have a lot of symptoms that will not go away, that might be something you need to do is to reconsider, changing up your schedule to see if some of the symptoms start to improve. All right, so we have that normal circadian pattern and we cannot disrupt it. We should not disrupt it. It just makes for, all kinds of things, set us up for frustrating symptoms and things like that. So if blood sugar rises too high from a late meal or crashes too low when you're fasting, it can disrupt your sleep stages. And so that even if you are sleeping or you're in bed for several hours, if you're not getting into your deep sleep or your recovery type of sleep, you are not going to feel well at all. And your blood sugar is not going to actually be very well controlled. So those glucose spikes at night will lead to a lot of inflammation. So if you have inflammation in your body, it might look like pain. It might be headaches. It might be again some of those other things we talked about with anxiety or even like gut health will be affected by this. Poor recovery, that is one big thing when you do exercise and you feel extremely exhausted after it for something maybe you used to do all the time. This is when people start to say, "Oh, I'm just getting older," or "I turned X many years old this year. That's why I don't recover." Well, maybe it's your glucose, maybe it's your sleep, and how that's all affected. And so you can definitely set yourself up for a lot of cravings and poor energy the next day if your nighttime cortisol, nighttime glucose, nighttime eating is impacting that. Okay, it will impact it, I should say. Any questions so far on that? Okay, just gonna.
Anything about chocolate?
Well,
I take 2 pieces, but at the time of the meal, around 5 or 6, that's all
oh,
right.
yeah, and I'm guessing it's not Hershey's,
No,
milk chocolate. So,
it's dark chocolate.
yeah, so I think you're, not to call it a brand, but you guys all know what I mean when I'm talking about more of a processed chocolate versus a dark chocolate with the cacao in it. If you're having it kind of at the end of your meal, that's not a problem. I mean, I don't even think like a dark chocolate's going to have a huge impact on someone's glucose levels, even if it was later in the day. Just it's not very sweet, right? So it probably doesn't cause a problem.
And what about fruits? If I take, like right now, it's blueberries we can hand pick. Or yesterday I got some cherries.
Mm, yes. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but blueberries are lower on the glycemic index, meaning they have a lower blood sugar response than other things. Cherries have a higher glycemic index, but I think they're considered, I should say higher than blueberry, but I think they're still considered like a medium index for glucose response. But they also will, if you're doing tart cherries, I don't know if they're tart or sweet cherries.
Yes, they are
Okay,
tart.
Okay, there's still some sugar in them, yes, but they also help convert into melatonin to help like calm down and they're anti-inflammatory. Yeah.
Oh,
So, if you are
Which
worried
one?
about glucose control, I'd probably put them earlier in the day. What was that?
Which ones help convert to melatonin? The tart?
The tart. Yeah, and they're very anti-inflammatory. I mean, I've worked with people who with joint pain and things like that, they will eat a couple tart cherries and they can tell a difference in their inflammation in a few hours. I don't know. I don't think they're I don't really eat cherries that much, but I've not ever noticed that myself, but some people they do. So, and it's a real whole food. It's a red food. It's really good for your gut health. So that's a whole nother thing we could talk about. We will be talking about gut health and blood sugar for sure, because that is totally connected.
it's too bad I don't know a way to, I eat them as they come out of the tree, but I could have a full case of it if I want, but I don't know how to preserve them.
Hmm. I don't either. I'm guessing, I mean, I
And if
bet
I
you could.
try to do jam, it will be with sugar, so that's no.
Mhm.
So
I
anyway,
think they can be frozen.
I
oh
was
yeah,
just gonna say. Hmm.
Because sometimes I'll buy the frozen ones. They pit them first, it seems, and then freeze them, and they can be good in a smoothie or anything too.
oh yeah,
Yes. Yeah, so that's exactly what I was gonna say. If you froze them, yeah, you probably want to pit them first, um,
yes.
and then use them in some kind of protein shake or smoothie. Those are really good. And then I know a lot of people in one of my programs, they would use the chocolate protein and use frozen dark cherry tart cherries for a little bit of extra nutrition in the protein shake. And it was, yeah, like that chocolate covered cherry flavors. That what is it, bonbons or something? Like you get that idea, only it's better for you. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so you could probably do something like that. I mean, truly, like eating in season is really, what we all should be doing. It's like where I live. I mean, the fruit, the fruit that we get here is not awesome because it comes from everywhere else. And then, so do what you can when you have things in season for yourself, for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, so there is actually some science behind the eating before bed, right? I'm not just throwing this out there. There's reasons for, how we need to eat to help manage your blood sugar and all the other symptoms we talk about. So at night, digestion just slows down because now the rest and digest part of your nervous system is kind of in control, right? So we're into rest and repair, rest, restore, recover. rest and digest. So, but your digestion does slow down, so it will sit in your stomach longer. There's not as much blood flow to your GI tract while you're supposed to be sleeping, and that's why blood sugar can remain elevated for, much too long, and that's why we can wake up in the morning often with an elevated glucose, right? Because and then we have the cortisol waking us up, and that brings glucose up as well. So if we eat right before bed, that just makes that problem worse. And that biochemistry, it doesn't work with the biochemistry, basically. Um, Also, the pancreas, which is responsible, the pancreas is responsible for releasing insulin at night. Or actually in the day too, all the time, it's responsible for that. So your body has a harder time clearing glucose from the bloodstream because our insulin sensitivity is not very effective at night. It's very inefficient. So it's not good at clearing the glucose out of your bloodstream and getting into the tissues to do the work that it's supposed to do to provide energy. If you have kind of a energy dip or not energy dip, a blood sugar dip in the middle of the night, that will trigger the release of cortisol. Like think of adrenaline, that wakes you up and you can be waking up anxious. You can wake up sweaty. You can wake up wide awake. Like I'm ready for the day. A lot of times people will say, women in particular say, "Oh, I have, night sweats. It must be my hormones." Yes, that is a contributing factor to night sweats and things like that. But if your blood sugar is crazy, that's also another reason for that. Okay? So, something
Will
we don't, what's that?
will we get your notes today? Because just what you said, I didn't have time to write that down.
Okay. Yep.
It
I have it
was very
all.
important.
Yes, it is. I have it all in an outline and it'll be in the materials.
Okay,
So you'll,
material.
yep, you'll get that.
Thank
And then eating a high glycemic food before bed. So think of dessert or cereal. A lot of people, I know when I was a kid at my grandma and grandpa's, they always gave us like for a nighttime snack, they gave us breakfast cereal, and they didn't have, kid type cereals like super sugary, colorful kind. It was always what I thought was pretty boring, Rice Krispies and things like that. But they would have us put on, allow us to put on teaspoon of sugar or whatever or more. So that was all carbohydrates, right? Even the milk had very little fat or protein in it, right? So it was just straight up sugar, basically. So any carbohydrate will turn into glucose in your bloodstream. So whether it's considered a healthy carbohydrate or not, it will turn to glucose and that will spike your glucose before you go to sleep, and then you'll crash, and then you'll have this cortisol response and you'll just have poor sleep all throughout the night and then bad energy in the day. And this vicious cycle turns into a lot of the symptoms that people are frustrated with. Like I said in the beginning, anxiety, headaches, weight loss resistance, that kind of thing. All right, so there's actual science behind that. And then what not to eat before bed. Kind of alluded to that already. So this is not the time to have cereal like I just described, pastries, and don't be eating donuts, whether they're commercial baked goods or things you make. Even things like crackers, I don't care if they say whole wheat and heart healthy and all that kind of stuff on them, they convert straight into glucose. And then things that this is common, wine. And I like people will often have wine while they make or open up a bottle while they're cooking dinner, and then they keep it going and they're drinking to relax at night. And hopefully, and you do when you drink alcohol, usually it's a depressant for people, so they get kind of sluggish and they start to get fatigued and kind of sleepy. And when that happens, it's very temporary, and then your body spikes again in the middle of the night. So it's kind of like a false sense of relaxation when you're drinking wine or other alcohol before bed. So that will spike the glucose rapidly, and then you will crash overnight. And then what does that crash do? Causes a spike in cortisol. And then it just starts that vicious cycle over again. Fruit alone. So kind of what you were talking about with the tart cherries or the blueberries. Any fruit alone you should not eat before bed. So fruit is healthy, right? There's lots of antioxidants, there's fibers and that kind of thing. It is mostly carbs, simple carbs, and it doesn't have enough fat or protein really to help stabilize blood sugar for overnight. So you're going to want to, I've said this before, never eat a naked carb that includes fruits. So if you have like, I'll recommend people do like I don't know, you could do like berries and cream, like heavy cream or even coconut cream if you don't do dairy. You can sprinkle with cinnamon, things like that. That's also supportive of glucose control to some degree. You could do something that's sort of like a fat and a protein, like an almond butter or peanut butter, something like you like with maybe half an apple or something like that. One of my favorite things, and I don't do it, but I used to a little bit more often when I was getting my glucose under control. And I usually had low blood sugar rather than high blood sugar, but I used like warm pears and heavy cream with cinnamon, and that was very soothing. And that kind of a little bit came from my history of teaching high school and stuff, teaching um, science and things that I had a lot of kids with a lot of attention deficit and focus things and doing crunchy and textury types of things before bed is kind of alerting. Like you become a little bit more alert at night too, just with crunchy things. So that's why like the warm pear cream, it's more soothing and it kind of keeps the senses down. So I've applied that to myself as well, not just when I would talk to parents at school about behaviors and that kind of thing with attention deficit or focus issues or whatever, don't let him eat like chips or whatever before bed for a lot of reasons, but that crunch is more sort of gets that excitatory brain chemicals rolling too. So soothing types of foods are going to be more supportive of getting a better night's sleep, and then that will help stabilize the blood sugar when you're doing the fruit with the fat or a little bit of protein. So avoid dried fruit, granola bars. We already talked about wine. If you, you just, we don't need to go into that, but if you're, especially with alcohol, let's just talk about that a second. And it's hard because, it's fun to enjoy a glass of wine, for example, if that's like a hobby for people or something that they are just interested in or they just simply like. But it's when it's, on a regular basis, that's when it really disrupts your body's ability to handle things in the liver processing of it, and then your glucose sensitivity and your stability of your glucose. So when you consume alcohol, that becomes, I don't care what kind of alcohol it becomes a primary source of fuel for your body to get out of its system because it is toxic to the body that because of the different types of alcohol to break down, it takes a while to do that, right? So if you're constantly doing that, it just never is rid of your body. So your body's prioritizing that. It's certainly not going to balance blood sugar. It's certainly not going to get into fat stores if there's always alcohol present. So that's why it's better to, not do it daily. And I just bring up wine because I do hear that. Like people will say, I just have a glass of wine, one glass of wine each night, after dinner. That's kind of the time to unwind and relax and whatever. And um, it seems benign, but just biochemically, it's not. Okay, so then all those things I just mentioned, they will interrupt with your REM sleep. It will increase your heart rate and reduce your body's ability to detox and repair overnight. So I mentioned that I wear that Aura ring, and I will see that if I have alcohol, my resting heart rate is going to be elevated. My normal resting heart rate is maybe 50, I don't know, like 52 or something like that, resting heart rate. And if I have alcohol, even if it's one glass of wine, my resting heart rate that night will be up towards this like 60. And that's not like it's like I'm running a race or anything like that, but it's definitely different, which tells me that my body in general is just more alert and my blood sugar is not as stable, right? And then the next day, even if you're not over consuming, the next day your body's still trying to recover and repair from it. So just keep those in mind. Keep those types of things out of the regular routine before bed. Okay, so things to eat instead are going to be kind of focusing on a slow digesting combination of protein, fat, and fiber. I already talked about a couple of those things. They're going to stabilize the glucose. They're going to reduce the chances of your blood sugar crashing and then waking you up at, say, 2 to 3 a.m. That's always the time. I always see that when people wake up at 2 to 3 a.m. Sometimes they think, oh, I have to get up and go to the bathroom, and oftentimes it's not. It's because their blood sugar has crashed, and then cortisol has brought glucose up, and it caused people to be more alert and wake up, and they might be awake for an hour or 2 hours, and then maybe fall back asleep, at 4 or 5 a.m. when they're still feeling like they could get more sleep. Um, so then examples would be, I already gave a couple examples, but you could do Greek yogurt with like chia seeds or almonds. If you, I don't know, if you can't tolerate dairy, then I would recommend, I don't know, some of the dairy-free yogurts are pretty high in sugar. If you do that, I would do a small portion of it, and then I would make sure that there's enough fat and probably protein to go along with it to keep the blood sugar from spiking to, keeping that level. Another option would be like a hard-boiled egg, maybe some avocado. There's good fiber in that avocado and the fat. This should not lead to any blood sugar spike, but should it give you a little bit of fuel to get through the night. Um, Turkey roll-ups with hummus, that would be a good version. Yep. What, you have a question?
Yes, concerning dairy product, I started eating goat brie cheese.
Hmm.
Is that all right?
Yeah. So when people have an issue with dairy, often it's the casein. It's a protein called casein in it. And there's A1 casein and there's A2 casein. And most people seem to have less issue or none at all with A2. I believe I haven't checked now recently, but in my state, getting A2 dairy is sort of like black market. People get it from local farmers that they probably could get shut down if they were if they were found out about doing that. So because they're not pasteurized, right? They're different. But that has a different protein profile and doesn't seem to cause as many issues. So dairy, cow dairy has A1 and A2 as well, but sheep and goat milk and milk products tend to be more on the A2 side, and usually there's less problems.
Hmm.
So, so that's the case. If you can access it where you are at, A2, even cow's dairy, yeah, try that. Turkey roll-ups with hummus. Turkey contains tryptophan, which, that's where people talk about after Thanksgiving meal and a turkey dinner, everybody falls asleep. It's not quite that dramatic, but tryptophan is a calming neurotransmitter, so that is helpful, but also it can help produce some melatonin. And then the hummus, which is garbanzo beans, has a little bit of protein, but little bit of carbohydrate, but that turkey will help weigh that down. The protein in that turkey will help weigh it down. If you do some kind of like fruit and almond butter or celery, like used to love celery and peanut butter as a kid. I haven't had that for a really long time. So you get a little bit of a crunch, not good for the soothing aspect I just mentioned earlier. But with that fat and a little bit of the protein in the peanut butter, that will help balance glucose and then kind of tapers off if you do feel hungry before bed or closer to bed. That would be a way to have that snack to fill up a little bit, but not too much. Yeah.
You know what I do? Like it happened last night. Generally, I don't eat after the last meal, but last night I was hungry, so I took some pumpkin seed and cranberries, a mix of those two.
Okay. And
How I,
how'd
but
you feel?
well, it's true that I couldn't fall asleep like usual.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad I say it out loud. I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, because I think what it is like dried cranberries or dried fruit in general. So there's no fiber really left in it. It's basically a little ball of sugar. So maybe with do you say pumpkin seeds?
Yes.
Maybe it just wasn't enough to counter affect the glucose in the dried cranberries. I don't know. Um,
And nowadays it's very hard to find dried cranberries without sugar. Mine has. So that's why. Thank you.
Yeah, it could very well be. I've seen at like do you have Trader Joe's around you guys? I don't know if that's in Canada or not.
What is it?
It's called Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's. No,
Yeah. So they're based out of California, I think, but they have chains all over and they're just I don't know, they just have really good usually good quality food and they will have like dried fruit but not
no
made
sugar.
lined with sugar with added sugar. I've even bought their dried blueberries for like and they have the texture of like a raisin or a dried cranberry or something like that. And they're good for putting in, making scones and things like that. Because if you I don't really bake, but when you do bake with fruit, there's so much liquid that it makes the baking kind of soggy and stuff. So that's why I've gotten them. But they have all kinds of things there. It's not just like the box of raisins or craisins or whatever. So that might be something to look into or something similar in Canada. I don't know what that equivalent would be as far as a store goes. Um,
What was the name of the trader? The name before?
Trader Joe's.
Okay.
hmm So that's
Okay.
something like that. I don't know what that would be in Canada. So think about that, or I'm just trying to think of some other things. Like I think I already said the Greek, yeah, the Greek yogurt. Just anything that is a small amount, it may be a smaller version of a meal, like half the size of a meal, with a protein and kind of a fiber carbohydrate focus. And if you don't have protein, then make sure there's fat with it. Because fat, and I think we've talked about this before, but fat with a carbohydrate will cause your glucose to come up a little bit, but it won't cause a crash. It'll stay with it longer. It'll keep your blood sugar up a little bit longer, and that's what happens when we sleep. If our blood sugar were to drop too low in the middle of the night, too long, I mean that we wouldn't survive. That's why it does come up a little bit at night. It's supposed to because cortisol will bring it up just a tish to keep you level throughout the night. You just don't want it to be, 120 while you're sleeping. You don't want it to be that elevated. But you want it to be elevated enough that it keeps you stable and that you can stay asleep and not have it be too much where it wakes you up and then you're tossing and turning or just up for the day. So that's the main importance there. So in a perfect world, you're gonna finish your last bout of eating, whether it's a dinner or your snack, 2 to 3 hours before bed. That's gonna avoid the interference with their digestion. It's going to not interfere your melatonin production. So just think about that and where you're at. However, I will tell you, there have been some people that I've worked with where their blood sugar is just really unstable in general. They're not diabetic or not diagnosed diabetic yet, but I have had people where I'd recommend where they do a little bit of a late night meal, like a small something before they go to bed, just to help them bridge the gap so that they can start to have more balanced blood sugar during the night. And then we can start working on removing that over time. But that helps people kind of shut down sometimes and stay asleep so that they have better glucose happening, starting the next morning. Yep, you have a question?
Yes, concerning the tart cherries, do I eat it with something if it's before bed?
I would, yes. hmm
So it would be what, like Greek yogurt or
Yeah, you could do Greek yogurt, or if you have like, I don't know, some turkey or, just even a couple ounces of protein with it, other than the Greek yogurt or something like that.
because there should be protein in the Greek yogurt, is it?
Yes.
But a tiny part.
hmm Yep. So that should help.
Hmm.
Anything that sounds good with that or that you have with that.
So it's cherry with turkey and a bit of fat.
Yeah. Yep. And usually it's a kind of a combination. If you were to have like a beef stick or something, there's going to be protein in it, but there's also going to be fat with it. Or if you had a little bit of almond butter, there's protein, but there's probably more fat than protein. So unless it's just like a straight up Greek yogurt where it's protein and very little fat, some Greek yogurts have some fat, but any of that combination, but you want to have at least protein or fat with it with the carbohydrate.
Hmm. Okay,
Okay.
at least one of them, or the best to have them all.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Excuse me, I was writing as I was talking.
It's okay.
So you said cherry plus a protein and a fat. That's the best combination. But if I avoid the fat, I'll still have the cherry and protein.
Yeah,
Do I understand that protein and fat, those two tend to reduce the impact of the spike?
absolutely. Yep, they'll reduce the impact of it. However, fat will, like if you did just just a fat and just a carbohydrate, it will bring your glucose will come up. It won't come up, it won't spike, but it'll stay higher longer. Whereas if
Uh,
you did protein, it'll buffer the spike and keep you sated longer too. So it's like once they both stop the spike,
mhm,
but fat keeps it up a little bit longer. That's not always desirable. Nighttime is a little different. We don't want you to spike your glucose, even a normal spike. We don't want it to get to 120 and stay up there for 4 hours. It needs to
mhm,
come down within a couple hours, back
mhm.
down to a baseline. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So this next part was sort of alluding to what I was just talking about, how some people may benefit from having something before bed. So how to know if you're that person, how if this is right for you. So if you have something called reactive hypoglycemia, which I have, that's what I struggled with in the past. I just didn't know that's what I struggled with in the past. But it does not feel good at all. Like you feel all the symptoms that I've discussed in here today, that definitely is a reactive hypoglycemic reaction. And what happens is when you have a spike in glucose, even if it's like a healthy spike, a normal spike, your pancreas will over respond and shoot out so much insulin that you crash. Your blood sugar just goes down to nothing, and then the symptoms that come with that are anxiety or insomnia. A lot of times you get nauseous. Sometimes you actually throw up from it, and when it gets that bad, you can get brain fog and everything that comes with that. And if you're doing that kind of roller coaster all day long, this might be the reason why someone should probably have a bedtime snack until we get that balanced out. If you have adrenal dysfunction, if you're so much under stress, so either if you have high cortisol or even low cortisol, because now you're burned out, probably having a small bedtime snack with carbohydrate and some fat is going to be beneficial for you. So if you have a history of waking at that 2 to 3 a.m. and there's nothing you can change about it, I've worked with people who are on, hormone replacement therapy. They eat really well and they cannot stop waking up at 2 to 3 a.m. We try this small snack that we just discussed, and that seems to help.
Oh, I always wake up at 4, very, very often. So it's the same reason you seem to say, eh?
Are you up for the day?
No, no. I go back to sleep, but I take some ortho sleep and a quarter of a pill.
Okay. Um, it might be worth a try to see, do a little bit fattier, do like a pear and heavy cream type of thing. Try that for a couple of nights and see if you notice a difference.
Do you mean a pear? Could it be those in cans? Because I don't have some right there at the market.
Um, Something equivalent to a pear, like that type of fruit. So maybe it's an apple, maybe it's a peach, something in that sort of category. Basically, not berries, because berries are really low in glucose.
So apple and heavy cream.
Yeah, see how that goes. If you roast, I don't know if you've ever roasted or baked an apple and it gets nice and soft and then put some cinnamon in it. That would be kind of good. Throw on some heavy cream. See how that works for you. Also think about what is your what do they call it?
Why?
Chronotype? Like when is your best time? Are you like I said, are you a night owl type of person or are you early to bed, early to rise type of person? So maybe is 4 a.m. your normal wakening? I don't think it is, but I'm just saying, think about that.
Sometimes I did wake up. I did get up, but what a lousy day.
Yeah.
I know I need more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's probably not your time for sure. So yeah, try that snack, the carbohydrate and fat, and see what that does for you. And try to get that a little bit closer to bedtime.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. So when your blood sugar is dipping too low at night, you're gonna wake up at, 2, 3 a.m. It varies. I'm just throwing that out there as sort of like the witching hour, like I've described it. This is when your liver is sort of detoxing at this time of night. Your cortisol spiking, if you have a cortisol spike in the middle of the night, that's not what we want. We don't want anything happening. We just want to be low, slow, and steady throughout the night, and so that you are staying asleep and feeling refreshed in the morning. If you are anxious or sweaty, restless, feeling, not energized when you wake up in the morning, if you snooze, want to hit the snooze button on your alarm a bunch of times, if you have that brain fog, headaches, if you wake up with headaches, this could be a sign that your blood sugar is dipping too low at night. But your CGM is going to be showing you that too. So if you're wearing a CGM, you're going to be able to see that. So if you are someone who is already insulin resistant, um, and your glucose says you're stable overnight, then there's no need to have that snack before bed. So that's where we have to kind of change our habits, flip the switch in our brain of that we think we need to do this. I talk to a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of women with small kids, and I totally get this, that when they go to bed and it's like the first time in the day that they've had any time to themselves where they can just sit and watch something on TV, read their book, whatever it is they want to do, and then they want to snack during that time. It's like kind of there's like a correlation, a habit that starts to form because it feels good to just have downtime. And a lot of times that is coupled with eating. That, even if it's healthy foods, will mess up glucose over time and mess up sleep and then morning energy and all that kind of thing. So just be mindful of that. And then you are using your tool. If you're using the CGM, obviously it's going to show you real-time data. It's going to look at how food, how stress, how your sleep is affecting your glucose overnight. So even if you focus for a while on your data, looking at your bedtime, whatever that is, until you wake up versus like what's happening during the day, look at what's going on over in the middle of the night. That's going to be really telling. And oftentimes morning glucose is the hardest to correct because of all the shenanigans happening in the middle of the night that we don't even really know is happening. So the CGM is really impactful for that. So if you dip below 70, I'm guessing you would know, you would be alerted to that. If you are having a nice curve like this roller coaster, you just want like the little kitty roller coaster. Nothing crazy, no spikes, no drops. That is not going to be healthy. It's going to contribute to everything we've talked about here today. It's going to contribute to your inflammation. It's just going to cause more and more of problems over time. So, journal your symptoms to track if you don't know. For it, just using your example where you talked about the cranberries and the pepitas or the pumpkin seeds, and you didn't sleep that great that night, just jotting that kind of stuff down and just observing is almost as effective, even as wearing a CGM in some ways, where you can tie what you feel, your symptoms, to your behavior or what you've done with food or exercise or whatever, is going to be really telling. And you will start to see patterns develop for you. And that's going to look different than what I experience and what the next person experiences. So it's good to do that for you, even for a time. So pay attention to your sleep quality, whether you wear some kind of sleep tracker of any kind. Like I personally don't recommend wearing, like an Apple Watch or Fitbit watch all night long. I just feel like we don't need to have those kind of things attached to us all the time. I prefer personally like the Aura ring, and I know there's other rings out there. I don't know anything about them, but you can turn the Bluetooth off of it, so it's in like airplane mode while you're sleeping. But it still is collecting the data, and then you just turn it back on in the morning, so you're not always getting all those extra things in our body. Yep.
Would you repeat? I used to have one, but I'm not wearing one anymore.
Hmm.
But uh, sometimes I always have to see it by myself to make sure I understood you. Did you say that the Apple Watch, we could put it on our phone, we could put plane mode,
That
and in
not
the morning, you won't get the results of your night, though.
Not the Apple Watch, to my knowledge, and I have one, but to my knowledge, you can't put it in airplane mode for sleep. But
Oh,
on the ring, like,
oh, okay, I didn't know.
yeah,
What.
I had it on my charger, my Aura ring, I can put it on sleep, like airplane mode, and then the Bluetooth isn't on all night, but it's still collecting the data.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's what I kind of like about that. And that's how I see how if I didn't go to bed till 1 in the morning for whatever reason, if I had a couple glasses of wine, if I ate something late at night, I see how that all affected me, and it matches up usually with how I feel. Like, and so you start to develop patterns, and you start to see, and this isn't a commercial for Aura. I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I have been wearing it for 5 years. Um,
is there a particular company, or they're all Oro? I don't
no,
really.
the one I use is Aura. I'm gonna put it in the chat. You can look at it. Um,
And that tells you what about you?
it tells me everything about me. It tells
Ah,
it tells you how much deep sleep, how much REM, how much light, how much restorative, what your resilience looks like. It tells you your heart rate. It tells
oh,
you like it's predictive of women's cycles. It's predictive of if you're getting sick. There's so many times where I've had like, why is my body temperature going up? I haven't had alcohol. Been going to sleep, and then like a few days later, I end up with some kind of sinus infection or cold or whatever. It happens all the time. When I had COVID way back when, it showed me all kinds of things.
oh,
It was
yeah.
kind of crazy. Yeah. So, and then it helps you, obviously the goal is to use that data and then do something with it, to do something to improve. And I
Like
feel like it's been easier to do that with that data.
like me, I climb a mountain every morning here,
Mhm.
but that's what I miss. I don't know if my heart is really active or not because I'm not wearing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Would
feel
get
like
that from the
it does that.
it wouldn't tell me.
Hmm.
And
So
it
it's good
goes
for
on,
steps.
it goes on in pairing with your phone or what?
Yep, there's an app with it. And then there's like let's see, for the heart rate, I do feel like my Apple Watch is better for the heart rate aspect because you can put zones in there. I like to do
Okay.
that. The ring doesn't do that. It just tells you kind of your recovery, like your heart rate in regard to recovery and that kind of
Oh,
thing. Yeah. So for like an actual workout, I always wear my watch. But if I'm just
Hmm.
walking, I'll wear my ring because it counts the steps. It's more accurate than the Apple Watch.
Okay. Merci.
Um,
I learned so much.
yeah, there's so many things to. I really like that ring. Um, so basically, let's just summarize kind of the key takeaways from today are that eating the wrong foods before bed raises your glucose, disrupts your sleep, elevates your cortisol, and just causes this sort of vicious cycle. And if we don't know, we don't know that this stuff is happening. And so sometimes we can sit and spin our wheels like, I'm doing everything right, I'm eating healthy foods, I'm trying to get enough sleep, but it's just like not working, nothing feels like it's working. And this could be part of it. It's not, might not be all of it, but it can definitely be a contributing factor to lingering symptoms, whatever they may be. So for some people, like I said, some people may benefit from having a bedtime snack to maintain glucose more level throughout the night, especially if you're adrenal issues, reactive hypoglycemia, even thyroid problems. And I think that's I had undiagnosed thyroid for so long, and I think that's why I had the reactive hypoglycemia for so long and just thought that I struggled with migraines and I thought that I had anxiety and I thought that I always got the flu. That's what, but nope, it was reactive hypoglycemia. So, stable blood sugar overnight will support your hormone balance, including the cortisol, melatonin, your insulin. It will reduce inflammation. It will help you get into fat stores to burn up the fat. You will get into deeper, more restorative sleep, and it will have obviously better improved energy and better mood probably the next day because you feel like getting out of bed and living life. So that's kind of the gist of today's conversation. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I'm coming back to yesterday when I couldn't sleep and I had a forehead headache.
Yep.
It's as if there was a switch that was on right there and I couldn't shut it. That was linked also to my little
Hmm.
snack before me. And I always wondered how come some days I have that and I don't, but you're telling me now.
I mean, possibly. It might not be the only thing. I mean, I think the barometric pressure, I think the environment, we've had horrible air quality here because of
Mhm.
the fires in Canada. And it's like we're just right, not very far, it's it's not been fun to be outside, so I think there can be those contributing factors too. But you can just try and change some of these things to see if that does make a difference and rule it out, because it seems like probably your glucose is pretty well regulated most of the other times, but maybe.
You said have a warm fruit, like your warm pear or a warm apple. Do you use a microwave?
No, I would normally just heat them up on the
Oh,
stove.
in
Yeah, because
the
then I would put the cream in there too, all
oh,
together.
okay, okay, okay. To
Yeah,
prepare
yeah,
a goodie for you.
yeah, yes. And like you could bake up a few apples or something like that, core them, bake them, and have those ready to go for a couple of
May,
days or something.
may I take applesauce instead?
Yeah, yeah, for
That's
sure.
really available. Just put some cream in it.
Yeah, absolutely, you can do that.
Oh, that's easy. That will be my version. And
Yeah,
thanks, Teresa, for the freezing the cherry tart.
yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Um, I know at Costco you can buy a big bag of tart cherries that are organic.
Mhm.
And I know those are have been very helpful for people. So I don't know. Any questions for you, Teresa?
I don't think so. Um, I know I am not going into the major hypoglycemic at night. I stay too high
Okay.
throughout, so I'm going to really try to work on cutting out that before bed snacking. And I mean, I've known that for a bazillion years, not to this level of detail of why it's bad.
Yeah.
That's good data to have, but it has been one of the most stubborn things for me that I've struggled with. So I
Mhm.
think maybe that's a good place for me to put my focus.
Yeah, and maybe first, just as an example, because I'm always a fan of tweaking a little bit so that we don't, so that it's actually sustainable. Because if we give up everything and we do it all hardcore, if it's like all or nothing, then I feel like it's harder to stick. And maybe I'm projecting because my personality is like I'm either all in or I'm all out with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so if you could just make it okay, because that's my problem. Sometimes it's not okay in my brain to only do it what I think of as halfway. So make it okay to do it halfway and even try to start with, I'm just using examples. Maybe you do like chips and salsa before bed, where it's pretty much all carbohydrates, right? That's going to turn into
What
glucose.
what's the name of what you're saying?
I just said chips and salsa as an example d- of not to doing that. Like just saying if someone is doing chips and salsa as a snack before bed,
Okay,
maybe
now
switch it up and add some protein to it, or maybe it's a different kind of chip with some protein, not just the salsa. You know what I mean? Like just switch up like that, or then change some of the things we talked about today. And then maybe the next step is maybe you remove. Maybe if you have snacks 6 times a week, maybe you do it 4 times a week and see what happens, and you can see what your data says. And that helps to actually stay in it, right? To stay, like, oh, this actually, I slept much better. I had more energy the next day. This makes it more motivating to keep on keeping on. So no more all or nothing.
no.
I'm bad with that too. Hmm.
It's
What
hard.
I like with you, Tiffany, is that when I understand the mechanics behind what we do, that helps me to in my motivation.
Yes.
When I don't know, well, who cares? But when I do know and I do it just the same, well, who's to blame?
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. And I think that I don't know if it's because of maybe a little bit my personality. I've always wanted to, like, I really need to understand things like doesn't matter what it is. I really just want to know. And then
Yes.
when I used to teach, it's like you have to teach so kids understand so they can, eventually pass the test or whatever. But it's like if you don't know what you don't know, it's really hard to make changes. So that's kind of how I wrap everything together for people. I try to, that's my goal. Um, so because it's easier to make change if you actually know the why. The method to the madness essentially is what we're doing here. Figure that out. So anyway, any other thoughts, questions before we jump off?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Ditto. Thank
I
you.
know I used to, I had another question before I came, but I don't remember. Next time I'll write them down before.
Yeah, you can message me too if you think of it. Our next one is the 19th of August. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Um,
Crazy, crazy, crazy. So, yep, the 19th. I was just looking at my calendar over there.
Oh,
So, let me know if you have questions before, and you can obviously always ask them here, but if you're not able to show up or whatever, just let me know and we can get that information to you.
right.
All
Oh,
right?
Tiffany, not
Yeah,
a question, but I did send you a message in the portal earlier this morning. I have a one-on-one with you tomorrow.
I answered.
Okay, good. I
Yep.
haven't seen it yet.
Yep, go ahead and check. I gave you some options.
Oh, perfect. Thank
Okay.
you. I wanted to like, give you as much warning as possible.
Yeah, no problem.
All
All
right.
right. Take care, guys. Bye.
Thanks.
Brown
Bye.
or
Thank you.
whatever.